This is for your ears only.
To give you an idea of what to expect in this video, this will not be a full plot summary of Metal Gear Solid 2. I will cover many of the parts of the story and the themes that are disclosed throughout the story itself, but this is more a deeper analysis into the game's themes in terms of how it would apply to our modern world, and in addition to that, how Kojima's own personal history influenced his storytelling throughout the game. Hope you enjoyed the video, and if you have any ideas or suggestions what I can do in future, feel free to leave a comment and let me know. In an era that feels not too long ago for some, including myself, but feels like a long time lost to many young people of today, the human race saw one of the largest technology integrations in our history since the likes of the telephone and the original computer were invented. The internet had existed a long time prior, but in the late 1990s to early 2000s, it became an essential part of everyday life in our homes. Many local populations of countries all around the world began to use the internet not only for work, but for personal use, consuming media, sharing ideas and knowledge, and above all else, building an online identity that became their own unique virtual signature. There was no real immediate consideration for the implications such a signature could have on the everyday person's place in the world. A tool originally intended for helping others find meaning would become a cog in a well-oiled machine to numerically track each and every individual and store their online profile as data, to sell, to market towards, or to establish greater means of exploiting. The only realm in which this was truly brought into question before the wheels were already spinning into motion was fiction. Authors dating back as far as Mary Shelley would ponder the idea of human invention and the ways in which it could lead to our own twisted attempt at playing God. As technology was continuing to evolve, so would media. This would mean many storytellers would find more unconventional meta approaches of delivering such themes to an audience. Video games continued to be such a unique medium in which a story could be conveyed to the player while requiring active prompts and responses to ensure narratives that fit the medium can have a much more profound impact, often even more than the writer intends. Hideo Kojima and his entire production team have a very unconventional approach to their games, conveying deep emotional, philosophical and impactful themes in ways a player could never imagine until they experience one of the studio's games for themselves. No single game has provided greater discussion, controversy, or been such a foretelling experience, maybe in all of gaming history, as Metal Gear Solid 2. MGS2 casts a huge shadow over storytelling in games, as one of those there were games before and there were games after types, having one of the most impactful narratives in gaming to this day, with layer after layer of twist and a theme that only continues to resonate and take a stronger hold as the years go on. It's a technical achievement in every sense, not only for the ways it puts the PS2 through its paces so early in the console's life, but also eerily foresaw many aspects of our own modern lifestyle, leaning so much into relying on technology and data as the key influences in our society. Major conglomerates in and around the tech industry are making it more clear than ever how little regard they have for human lives in favour of pushing technological advances in AI for their own gain at any cost. Multi-billion-dollar giants like Microsoft will fire tens of thousands of staff and leave broken homes in their wake if it means they can invest that little bit more into their AI ventures. You best start believing horrifying dystopias, Miss Turner. You're in one. And then there's echo chambers on social media platforms, ensuring comfort spaces and social groups, losing a sense of subjectivity, and very rarely able to have meaningful and constructive conversations online around any given topic.
Everyone withdraws into their own small gated community, afraid of a larger forum. They stay inside their little ponds, leaking whatever truth suits them into the growing cesspool of society at large.
Be the discussion around our political stances, our views on games and movies, or even down to which fast food restaurant is best. We live in a time where the internet has radicalized us in every sense. Brand loyalty, fandom culture, labels and communities living by very set principles to the point, if you find yourself anywhere outside one of these principles, it's not so easy to be embraced by one of those very spheres that claim to be so welcoming. Individualism ironically ceases to exist on platforms supposedly designed for that very purpose. Algorithms, search engine optimization, TikTok trends and demographic marketing are tailored to any users who can be seen as a demographic to appeal to. And so many find themselves unconsciously abiding by this exact mindset, much like the codec call initially implied would happen all those years ago. The S3 plan.
What it does stand for is Selection for Societal Sanity. The S3 is a system for controlling human will and consciousness. S3 is not you, a soldier trained in the image of Solid Snake. It is a method, a protocol that created a circumstance that made you what you are.
So you see, we're the S3, not you.
Selection for Societal Sanity has an awful lot of resemblance to influencer culture and the means with which industry plants can push us to their ideas, be that a belief, product, or form of content to consume. Surveying the ways in which a majority of platform users can be led into an ideal like a flock of sheep.
War is a video game. What better way to raise the ultimate soldier?
Even down to the terminology applied to your average person. Depending on your profession, rather than saying people, we say consumer, client, customer, user, player, viewer. Industry and government operates under this terminology more so than ever, because the ways we speak about appealing to consumers has a sense of detachment. We dissolve the idea of saying a person is involved in this, because in many cases, the idea of another human being at the other end of this manipulation would feel cruel. So by convincing a client to invest his life savings into a crypto that will dissolve in a few months, we can remove the humanity for our own better gain. Everything becomes transactional. We're all simply data. What I'm trying to get to here is that Metal Gear Solid 2 addressed these themes in such a masterful way, at a time when the digital age was merely stepping out of its cave and starting to gain some momentum. It achieved this at an astoundingly perfect time to present the discussion, as such a significant point in American history happened a few months prior to the release. The September 2001 attacks meant that, ultimately, Kojima chose to cut scenes of Arsenal gear tearing through the financial district of New York in a kaiju-esque sequence, very much deliberating whether to release the game at all, considering its themes around patriotism, free will, and corruption. Kojima and his team address these themes around individualism, finding identity in a postmodern world, and using these new technologies for preservation and better understanding of other cultures, rather than adding to toxicity, at a time when all sense of American identity in the previous century had just been completely shattered. So much so that for years to come, shows, movies, and books would be in direct contrast to reflect the American spirit. Be that South Park's comeback after a long hiatus, showing an honest but comedic reflection of American culture and societal interactions during the last few months of 2001, or Sam Raimi's Spider-Man having New Yorker NPCs stopping the Green Goblin's attack on the Brooklyn Bridge. None, however, would capture this post-disaster state of mind better than MGS2's final hours. Through the eyes of Raiden, we despair at the message of the Patriots, one of utter control over the public. Control over not just human life, but over the very information that humans have tried to preserve over lifetimes, forever corrupted by the GW AI influence and lost to the ages. Any sense of human autonomy dies with the machines nurturing and brainwashing our behavioural patterns from such a young age. Like the Matrix keeping humans sedated with stimuli while it eats away at their minds. The attacks in 2001, along with the shocking devastation of thousands of lives lost, left an entire country, if not the West as a whole, with PTSD from the intense media coverage of the events for months on end, the likes of which had not been seen since the death of Princess Diana and the Y2K events at the turn of the century. At a time when many Americans felt their sense of identity and nationality had been laid bare, the Bush administration and mass media took the moment to sway public opinion towards radicalism, spouting claims that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction and would use them against any opposing threats, that Iraq had direct ties to the events of 9/11. We Brits can't get too smug either. Then Prime Minister Tony Blair was keen to back up Bush, all in the name of pillaging the land for its resources, no matter the cost of lives that would be even further lost as consequence. The data shows over time how propaganda and influence through news channels and online swayed the British public's opinion. A poll from YouGov in 2003 found that 54% of Brits thought that Blair made the right call taking part in the invasion. When the same poll was conducted in 2015, only 37% felt the same way. In the wake of the invasion, it's estimated around 122,000 civilians were killed. To me, the data speaks for itself, but ultimately I have to admit, if not for MGS2 and how the ending challenged my preconceived notions at the time of playing, this was in 2011, I can't say whether I would have taken this information on board and processed it all in my own way. The British education system certainly wouldn't have supported me in doing so at the time, as our education tends to focus on our more glorious moments, the World Wars, the Industrial Revolution. That's if you consider child labour glorious. That's not to say we don't look at the cruel nature of our history, but more so it was something that existed as part of a bygone era. The consequences and prejudices still can't be felt today, and if not for a set bunch of teachers who were open to that discussion, who knows if I would have gone that far. I have not encountered many schoolbooks that will tell you the difference between a tabloid newspaper and a broadsheet one. What does an objective headline look like compared to a subjective one? Questions most adults don't even think to ask, let alone children. Maybe it's a coincidence, or maybe it's because we can't enable an education system that leads to future generations questioning aspects of their own history. Or hell, even enabling them to have full awareness of its context or impact across the globe.
The White House was our primordial soup, a base of evolution. We are formless. We are the very discipline and morality that Americans invoke so often. How can anyone hope to eliminate us? As long as this nation exists, so will we.
Cut the crap! If you're immortal, why would you take away individual freedoms and censor the net?
Jack, don't be silly.
Don't you know that our plans have your interests, not ours, in mind?
What?
Jack, listen carefully, like a good boy.
MGS2 sought to make the player question the source of their own morality. Our parents raise us, but the external factors of how we are nurtured through our education, media, and communication with others. In the digital age, technologies are evolved and are still evolving faster than any governments can keep up with. We host our data on country elections on digital systems, with data breaches becoming more and more common, meaning external interference can easily happen during a referendum or presidential election. It's not until you hear AI kernel Campbell's longer conversation that the game truly holds a mirror up to you, the player, and tells you exactly what it's trying to say. Everything you learn from the moment you're born is part of a social construct, a construct being fabricated by those around you. It's almost entirely an unconscious action. No single person can consider every moment of exposure they've faced in news, propaganda, politics, and so on. It's something secretly passed down from generation to generation that forms part of who we are, our beliefs. The memes, Jack. And while using the Patriots as allegory for corrupt governments, we gain understanding of the means to which world leaders are very much willing to go to ensure they continue to be in charge of the narrative in an average civilian's life. To this end, AI programs are being used as a means of education and as a supposed reliable source, where we don't know the full extent of which these programs proofread their own content. These programs are now using our data to work out which content to sell to us or to bring out emotional reaction. The internet has become the hub of the biggest Planned Parenting experiment in human history. The means with which the AI kernel and Rose are appealing to Raiden, telling him that he has never developed the skills to choose for himself because of how their programming has brainwashed him, and even when he's starting to believe he's finding his own way, the AI correctly informs him he's only echoing what Snake told him in the first place. Raiden still found an idol he projected onto and used to try and carve out an identity for himself. The Patriots and so the GW AI believes humans are incapable of evolving with a true sense of autonomy. That perhaps our DNA and the way genes are passed down reflects the means with which life lessons are passed down from generation to generation. That we are too ignorant to question our own perceptions and understanding of the world based on our social constructs formed from birth to the present.
And you think you're qualified to decide what's necessary and not?
Absolutely. Who else could wade through the sea of garbage you people produce, retrieve valuable truths, and even interpret their meaning for later generations?
That's what it means to create context.
I'll decide for myself what to believe and what to pass on.
But is that even your own idea?
Or something Snake told you.
That's the proof of your incompetence right there. You lack the qualifications to exercise free will.
That's not true. I have the right...
Already, this is a deeply complex topic for the game to address, one that undoubtedly broke so many conventions of gaming narratives, subverting all notions around what games in storytelling and in the media in general can achieve. Almost 25 years on, we can see how games are capable of appealing to the player from a more nuanced philosophical level. With narratives like Spec Ops: The Line, BioShock, Mass Effect, Nier Automata, and of course Death Stranding, MGS2's influence is plain to see in each of these, very much incredible in their own rights. Kojima wants you to go on this journey, to feel this low with Raiden, to ask yourself which actions in your life have you taken which were out of your control. Where do your influences come from? Do you act for yourself or on behalf of others? Is it because you want validation, fear of losing them, or simply because you can't work out what you personally want from life? How many qualms in everyday life do you put aside to make life easier, or just so you can close your eyes and sleep at night? Despite a difficult childhood, with his father passing when he was just 13, Kojima found his feet when he studied economics at university, playing Famicom games in his spare time, which ultimately inspired him into pursuing a career in the games industry. At age 26, Kojima had already released the original Metal Gear. At this time, in 1989, Japan was at the brink of devastating change, with the death of Emperor Hirohito and the economic boom of the 1980s being grinded to a halt. The core beliefs of the Japanese people had of their own heritage would be brought into question. An emperor once seen as a divine figure would have any sense of legacy disputed, as the common residents and ministers were critical of his approach and the impact his actions during World War II would continue to have on Japan's future. Additionally, a few years prior in 1985, the Japanese government faced pressure from the US to sign the Plaza Accord. This was an agreement designed to devalue the US dollar in an attempt to increase exports in the country, in the hopes of becoming more competitive against the likes of the unsinkable Japan of the 70s and 80s. The increase in value of the yen made exports more expensive, so there was less trade. The Accord's real repercussions were felt by Japan in the late 80s. In addition to this, the Japanese real estate bubble burst. The effects were financially crippling to the people of Japan. The 1990s became known as the Lost Decade, an era which many say Japan has never recovered from. More recently, a survey conducted by the Nippon Foundation in May 2024 found that out of 1,000 Japanese teenagers, the majority had no interest or affinity for the emperor or for the royal family. During his funeral procession in 1989, there were an estimated 800,000 spectators. At the eye of the storm throughout this decade, with an economics degree and vivid imagination, was Kojima himself. Across the 90s, he wrote MGS1, a narrative focused on legacy, passing down our genes, what it means to be a loyal soldier, and what it means to take a life. Naturally, these have deeper allegorical meanings. Snake is loyal to the mission, to killing when necessary. Is it indifferent to be loyal to your boss or to your country? To follow through on tough choices when they are presented before us. While these themes are profound and have something to say in their own right, there is so much more that comes forward. Many of the contradictions Kojima had been raised to believe, whether this be around family or around the society he was born into, are at the heart of MGS2. The ways in which our obedience can have dire consequences in our everyday lives. The complacency to follow social constructs without questioning their deeper meaning. To look at our history without asking, is this the full story? Because, as previously mentioned, those were the thoughts of many of the Japanese people facing financial hardship throughout this era. It's the thought many Americans would come to ask after the invasion of Iraq, subsequent withdrawals, and administrations after administration of incompetency. It's the thought I have every time a vague statement from the Prime Minister comes up, who claims to speak on behalf of all their people who will condone genocide, while on the contrary, hundreds of thousands of the same people will march in protest against such actions weekly.
You're being silly. What we propose to do is not to control content, but to create context.
Create context.
The digital society furthers human flaws and selectively rewards development of convenient half-truths. Just look at the strange juxtapositions of morality around you.
Billions spent on new weapons in order to humanely murder other humans.
Rights of criminals are given more respect than the privacy of their victims.
Although there are people suffering in poverty, huge donations are made to protect endangered species. Everyone grows up being told the same thing.
Be nice to other people.
But beat out the competition.
You're special. Believe in yourself and you will succeed.
But it's obvious from the start that only a few can succeed.
You exercise your right to freedom, and this is the result. All rhetoric to avoid conflict and protect each other from hurt. The untested truths, spun by different interests, continue to churn and accumulate in the sandbox of political correctness and value systems.
Only at this point, when the 20-minute long codec call has rattled our brains, and our entire philosophy been brought into question, do we face the game's main antagonist, Solidus Snake? A man who reflects the same very desire we have as the player for autonomy, for true freedom, not bound by the constraints of narratives spewed out by our leaders, but creatures of free will, able to find our own paths forward, free from societal norms, conventional behavioural patterns, no longer finding our very lives being devoured by the ambitions of other, wealthier, heartless, and more ignorant world leaders. Solidus is crushed that his life's work, his legacy, will be gone in an instant under the Patriots, in the same way the player fears everyday life becoming truly soul-crushing, that maybe your career aspiration isn't possible, that the one thing that could give your life meaning will forever be out of reach. Solidus has no limits to fuel his ambition, using the extremist group Dead Cell as his puppet, manipulating Raiden, even admitting he killed his parents when he was a boy. Raiden is fighting for his own future, one without the Sons of Liberty. As much as Solidus' ambition is true, his deeper intentions will never be revealed to the player. Defeated, he falls to his death from the roof of Federal Hall, crawling towards the George Washington statue on the very date his idol was sworn in as the first president of the United States. Perhaps Solidus fails to recognise Washington never intended for America to become what it has become under the Patriots, a data-fueled cesspool of the digital age, having catalyst after catalyst building international tensions, only ever leading to further conflict. A land where the masses struggle to simply endure day to day. Had Solidus won, he may have become another founding father as he so wished, but would his legacy be so different from Washington's a few hundred years on? Look upon my works, ye mighty, and despair. Then, only when the game is over, do we get to hear the other side. Snake mentions throughout the game a few times that he's fighting for a future, which feels unclear to both Raiden and us. It's only here as the credits roll that we get to understand what he means.
Who am I, really? No one quite knows who or what they are. The memories you have and the role you were assigned are burdens you had to carry. It doesn't matter if they were real or not. That's never the point. There's no such thing in the world as absolute reality. Most of what they call real is actually fiction. What you think you see is only as real as your brain tells you it is.
Then, what am I supposed to believe in? What am I going to leave behind when I'm through?
We can tell other people about having faith. What we had faith in. What we found important enough to fight for. It's not whether you were right or wrong, but how much faith you were willing to have. That decides the future. The Patriots are a kind of ongoing fiction too, come to think of it. Listen, don't obsess over words so much. Find the meaning behind the words, then decide. You can find your own name. And your own future.
Decide for myself?
And whatever you choose will be you.
I don't know if I can.
I know you didn't have much in terms of choices this time. But everything you felt, thought about during this mission is yours. And what you decide to do with them is your choice.
You mean start over?
Yeah, a clean slate, a new name, new memories. Choose your own legacy. It's for you to decide. It's up to you.
Here, this is what it's all about. The fight for a future that Snake, that Kojima really means. There will always be bad influences in the world. Tabloids, corrupt politicians, international interference, corporate greed, whether that takes the place from machine or man. But that's not all that continues to exist.
I'll pick my own name and my own life. I'll find something worth passing on. They taught me some good things too.
I know. We've inherited freedom from all those who fought for it. We all have the freedom to spread the word, even me.
There will always be people who are open to question what they hear, to consider the other side of the story, those who will always believe that there is a chance of preservation of our culture, the good and the bad. If not an end to unrest, the pathway to help those in the future learn from our own mistakes. While those ideals are held onto and passed on,
Through speech, music, literature, and movies.
we are not defined by the mistakes of our family, governments, or the data tech companies store of us that profile each individual as such. You have the choice to form your own beliefs, not to adapt to the beliefs or trends of others. To take what you can from every person you speak to, but accept that you'll never be the same. All of this is in congruence with who you are, your sense of self. It's a process happening from the moment you're born until the day you die. Snake speaks not as the wise, more experienced mentor for Raiden, but as someone going through the exact same thing as Raiden himself, and the same thing the player is. For as long as humans have cognitive thought, we will be able to disagree. But if someone we disagree with is willing to have an open conversation, we should hear them out and hope to be listened to in return. That's the only means of reaching a better understanding of ourselves, if we're able to consider the idea of challenging our own beliefs. The reason I presented those statistics I mentioned earlier is proof. We humans do question what we're told. Everything the government and media spoon-feed us. We are beings of change. If not in our generation, the one that follows will always have their doubts of historical good intentions. Disagreements become divides that are impossible to come back from as time passes. It's better we try to build bridges, pull back the disconnects with a rope, or at least try to, than reject anything even slightly different to us and push it away with a stick. It's one for the Death Stranding fans right there. The ending cutscene is an incredible moment, almost a call to action, to remind the player that you are an individual. You do have the autonomy and free will to make up your own choices. While some choices are simply out of reach for us, it's up to us to choose how to respond, to learn from our actions and to pass on what we know. The creativity behind such an ending to this day is inspiring to behold. I'm sure it leaves anyone as speechless now as it did back in 2001. In July of this year, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer pushed the highly controversial and often rejected Online Safety Act. Conceived as a means of ensuring children aren't exposed to inappropriate content online, many web pages in the UK will now ask for a biometric scan or an upload of an ID such as a passport, unless you have a VPN. This has been used as way of the government overstretching its means and invading the everyday civilian's right to autonomy and privacy, as this has not only blocked pages with explicit content, but also those with any reference or any forms of harm, self-inflicted or otherwise. Meaning even if you need to reach a charity hotline for support, research point of our history, or to connect with a community you will find a sense of comfort from, the government wants to know about it. Ironically, I replayed MGS2 a week before this happened, and had already started writing the video, but now it's been even more at the forefront of my mind. Everyone has the right to their own choices and privacy. We all deserve to find someone we share common ground with, even virtually, especially if we're feeling isolated. The very act supposedly made to protect children seems likely to put as many others in danger, at least where well-being is concerned. Being hosted through third-party age verification services, many of those being utilised from the US, could mean an eventual data breach that could consume millions of identities, passports, IDs, addresses and contact information. This can be used in scamming, identity theft. Overall, this would mean less security for the data of the British people, which is being disregarded, all in the name of gathering data and creating an online profile to summarise everything the government want to know about a person. I'd like to believe this tool can be used as a means of good for the sake of young people online. However, in the light of who this tool is in the hands of, personally I don't believe I could trust a single one of them with such a tool. As mentioned earlier, no politician should be trying to play God, and there's no better story than MGS2 to show what the consequences can be of such tyranny. I hope things get better, though as more time passes, MGS2 only ever seems to be less like a warning and more like a history lesson. Always remember, Big Brother is watching you. There are more themes around the game I'd like to discuss in future. We've gone over how the game challenges patriotism, asks us to question our sense of free will, and consider the ways we claim our own independence, communicate, learn and pass on what we know to others. All of this in aid of finding our own path, our own choice. But what about if, like me, when you have that breakthrough moment of finding your own voice, realising you can do whatever you want with your life, all you see is a blank page? To go over this, we'll be psychoanalyzing the protagonist Raiden, and having a much more personal look into the character, the backlash around his reveal, and the meaning of this character, and really how much it meant to me during my first playthrough. Thanks for watching. Leave any theories or interpretations you have of the game in the comments, and also feel free to leave some feedback. I'm happy to take any ideas you have on how I can improve my videos in future as well. Once again, I appreciate your time if you've gone all the way through the video, whether you're watching or just listening. Either way is great. Hopefully I'll see you in the next one.
Building the future and keeping the past alive are one and the same thing.